introduction to Chikitsa, and now we have, as so introduced, Mr. Bala, who's going to take over. I would also like to invite the other panelists. Ms. Shanti Pai, Engineering Leader and Site Lead, Danhawk Corporation. We welcome you, ma'am. We have Mr. Gaurav Kapoor from Indegene, who will grace the stage again. Sridhar from Baxter. Thank you so much for joining in. Looking forward to this extremely insightful session. Bala, over to you.
Thank you, Sanjeev. Thank you, everyone. When you talk about AI in healthcare, I think we would probably be the, I would say, 50th, maybe 100th conference just in 2024, in the few days that we have spent in this year that talk about AI. AI in anything and everything, right? We wanted to be slightly different. We said, let's not go down the usual path. When you look at AI, you've got people talking on the spectrum. There are people who are exuberantly optimistic, and there are people who are deeply alarmist. So this ranges from AI is going to do anything and everything for me, and that will change humankind and take it forward, through to AI is going to be the end of healthcare as we know it, and humankind as we know it as well. So we've got people across the entire range of the spectrum, and I think I want to consciously differentiate between the tech nation and the healthcare nation. When you look at the tech nation around us, that involves the large companies that we've all heard of, that are the technology companies, product companies. Their way of dealing with technology advancement is very different from the healthcare nation. When you look at probably 5 years ago, all revenue was digital revenue. And today, when you look at all of the companies, the tech companies, all revenue is AI revenue. Now, the healthcare nation can't afford to put that optic that the tech nation is allowed to and free to do. So when we see AI transforming us from the digital transformation era into the intelligence adaptation era, what are the things that we need to talk about? Human rights, fear of super intelligent models, humanization of robots, responsible AI, privacy concerns and how do we deal with them. And when you talk about the healthcare nation, all of us are aware of the challenges that we are faced with. Now, more than ever, we have physician shortages. We have burnouts in the clinician space. COVID has just accelerated that. More patients than ever, less time with the doctors and the clinicians. We have reduced access despite spending more on healthcare than ever before. We have a widening equity gap when it comes to healthcare. The haves and the have-nots are getting very, very different quality of care at this point of time. And as it is, medical errors are still the leading cause of death, which is talking about the care quality concerns that we should be having and discussing as a group. and combine that with the demographic changes that we are seeing as a global community. The percentage of geriatrics are increasing. Percentage of folks with chronic illnesses are increasing. So how can AI change the game for us? You talk about clinical decision support. As a panel, I had the privilege and opportunity to connect with these individuals and experts in a room that is right adjacent. And we were talking about paternalism in medicine. In God we trust. In doctors we trust. How do I extend that into in the AI model that provides diagnostic support to the clinician I trust? How is it even possible? Today, all of my LLMs that all of us keep talking about, the large learning models, they're all black boxes. Clinicians are not the most tech savvy of folks. How do they understand the model and how can they explain it to the patient? How do we push for data-driven diagnostics when the data itself has inherent biases built into it? When I use the data with these biases for training my models, am I just perpetuating these biases and using them for diagnostic support? Is it going to help patient or harm patients? We don't know. We talk about administrative efficiency, productivity improvements. Now that is there. AI, when you talk about the tech nation, they're talking about 20, 30, 40% productivity improvements. Will it translate to the same level of productivity improvements in healthcare? Remains to be seen. The tech nation has advanced all of us. Today we are living in a cloud world, a mobile-first world. Today we are living in a wearable world. The device on my wrist is as powerful as some of the huge computers that were a few decades ago. Now, in this world, the amount of data being generated is humongous. Who controls the data? Who owns the data? Is this data okay to train the LLM with? These are all matters that are in front of the US courts at this point of time. Consent management, as I spoke about, it's very important, especially when it comes to AI models. If the clinicians don't understand how the model works, how can they explain it to the patient? And informed consent is a big, big deal when it comes to healthcare. So we talk about, on one hand, the tech nation, with all the tech leaders talking about the fact that AI is just another technology. We've always had AI. If you have used Google Maps on your phone for the past 5 years, let's say, that has been AI driven. So we've always been, as consumers, using AI every day. AI is nothing new. It is just one more productivity improvement tool, efficiency improvement tool, effectiveness improvement tool, is what the tech nation tells us. How do we take that and extend that into the healthcare nation is what hopefully this panel is going to help us dive into. We have got a set of eminent leaders from Indegene, from Baxter, and from Danaher. Why don't I take my seat there and then we can probably, do we have more mics? Okay. So we will delve into the panel in the next few minutes.
Just to add, Bala, the 49th on Gen AI discussion I did a few minutes back.
49th?
Yeah,
Brilliant.
So you said 50, so 49. But I'm
Not too far off the mark.
And I'm also on the extreme positive side of how Gen AI can do. So making that disclaimer.
Excellent. So I know you've now staked a claim on the positive, optimistic side of Gen AI. I don't know if Shanti or Sridhar are going to be part of the alarmist or the realistic, pragmatic view, but we will see. 2023, a lawyer stood in front of Judge Kevin Castell and submitted a legal brief full of citations and case law references. It was later found out that this brief was prepared by ChatGPT. And he had no clue that ChatGPT had fabricated or created these legal references or citations. He said, I wasn't aware ChatGPT could do that. Now, of course, he became the butt of all jokes on the late night shows that you have in the US. And of course, he also became known as the ChatGPT lawyer. The thing is, nobody died. The plaintiff, the defendant, the case was dismissed. The lawyer was cited, saying you didn't do enough due diligence, but nobody died. Now, if you take it into a healthcare context, what could have happened, right? So those are some serious issues that we will be discussing. Why don't we take up, Gaurav, first, you talk about AI models, right? Machines helping us do what we should be doing for the patients. Where is the human in all of this? And what are your views on that?
Yeah. And Indegene largely works on the life sciences side, the whole space, helping medicines come out faster. And from a human side, I think human and animals both come into large consideration when we're bringing a drug into the market. And I think from a life science side, there's some good, responsible work which has started to happen, which will impact early days. But I at least in the market where I come from, North America, I've started to see it's one of the big regulations which FDA is pushing, that the animal testing, right? And India was also in the news many years. The animal testing in the phase, when you do preclinical work, in the pharma industry, animal is testing is a big thing, and pharma is constantly under pressure from FDA to bring down. And AI and now Gen AI started to eliminate a lot of that animal testing. And that's pharma is embracing now. Some of the large companies actually have started to do that. So today we can see human on a chip actually, which actually with large data and LLM on top of it to actually bring out where you could actually do all the toxicity studies. Basically, animals are done to see if the drug in the first phase, preclinical is toxic or not. And actually using AI, you can start building models where you can start looking at predictive that whether this will be toxic into the body, toxic of the animal. Now you pretty much you can do it on a chip. And that's a very, very interesting thing coming up. And you could see next 3-4 years, pretty much animal testing, industry, pharma, from where I come from, pretty much can bring that down by 50-60%. That will be a big impact, very positive impact for the community industry from a responsible industry perspective. Second area we've talked from Devi Shetty onwards that there's a lot of pressure on the workforce, the healthcare workforce across doctors, intensivists, nurses, and that's another area where AI has started to come in. You saw a couple of Gen AI bot, in US, again, examples where nurse, typically a co-pilot nurse, pretty much looking at a decoupled nurse, that nurse will do certain things to the doctor on the bedside, but lots of other 20-25 activities can be done to decongest a nurse. So pretty much doing, again, work, making sure that the nurse is not under pressure and the quality of life is managed, and it's scale, and you can scale and take that care to other patients, and you can save lives. So this is one. The third, where we work very, very closely, is the whole area of compliance. There's safety of the drugs is also very important, which is called in the pharma terms called pharmacovigilance. And I'm seeing that there again, using AI and now Gen AI, pretty much you can start looking at when the adverse effect on a certain drug is reported back, where typically you have call centers, and you can start now using Gen AIs to pretty much record them, so you can record faster, and then you can process them faster and submit to the FDA and analyze the data faster, that which drug is safer and which drugs once you bring that market. So 3 examples to show that how industry started from the lens we come from, has started to bring some level of, with Gen AI, some level of impact, which, and then many other use cases, but I'm very attached to some of these and seeing that there is responsible work happening in this sector.
Got it. Just a quick follow-up. I know, protein folding structures, have been gamified, and this happened, 2 decades ago? Docking studies, in silico modeling, these have been around, right? It's not new at all to the industry.
Correct.
What are the Gen AI or the AI use cases, particularly when it comes to drug development or device development or biologics development, that you think are changing the face of the game today?
Pretty much today, you can actually, we already saw a couple of months ago, Gen AI generated much safer molecule for a couple of disease areas already being brought out to actually, on an accelerated pathway to bring it. And doesn't have to go from preclinical to actually clinical and follow a 7-8 year pathway. Actually, in 2 years, pretty much done. So one area we're seeing is that you could do molecules using multiple data models to actually see that you come up with a much safer drug, which can be tested on less number of patients, less number of animals, and brought out to the market in the rare, ultra-rare disease areas where there's no treatment. There is a huge unmet need still in neurology, oncology, in the rare diseases. There, Bala, a lot of work has already started to happen. You will see discovery area kind of embracing this very, very well. And these are very modern kind of techniques being used to kind of bring out a molecule.
Interesting stuff. So we speak of innovation. I wanna go to Sridhar next and see if, innovation is all good. How do you balance that with the compliance needs? I mean, we are arguably the most regulated industry on earth. Now, how do you balance that with the compliance requirements, especially when some of these regulations are not keeping pace with the technology advancements? We spoke of, privacy. With wearables, cloud, whatever else, HIPAA and regulations like that are just not keeping track with the changing data generation technologies. You speak of allowing nurses to operate at the top of their license, which probably allows clinicians and physicians to do more for their patients. But the legal liability regulations have not kept pace with that. So how do you balance regulatory compliance with innovation?
Thank you, Bala. First of all, I'm Sridhar, and good afternoon, and I'm honored to be part of this esteemed panel of some of the industry's best minds, and to be part of the group where all the healthcare innovators and entrepreneurs in one stage. Right? Coming back to your question, so I come from the medical device background. We, as a Baxter, we deal with devices which directly deals with saving and sustaining lives. So the devices which makes mistakes, someone loses their life. So it's highly regulated and safety critical products. And meeting the regulatory requirements and standards is one of our highest priority. And we spend a lot of energy, time, money on daily basis on discussing this. So bringing that to AI context, right? Today, where we are is I was looking at FDA's database, which provides the data of currently approved medical devices, which has an AI in it. How many of you think how many AI-based medical devices might have approved by now? Any guesses? 0? No? Hundreds? Thousands? 20? 50? 50? So there are approximately 700 AI-based medical devices were approved by FDA, which can be used on the patient and can be sold in the market, right? One interesting number that I noticed is that out of the 700, 70% of those medical devices are from the radiology, right? So that means there's a lot of trust built by these AI models, which are deep learning image classification or image identification models, right, to the regulatory. The remaining 20-30% is actually cardiology and few other medical domains. So the regulatory mainly looks all of these AI models with respect to safety and efficiency of these models in the clinical environment. And if I bring Gen AI to this, today regulatory does not distinguish between a machine learning, deep learning, or Gen AI models. They think all are AI models, right? And one of the critical requirements for regulatory is that you look at all these models from the risk-based approach. You have to explain very clearly to the regulatory that what inputs, what performance metrics, if you change your model in the field while it is performing and while it is getting a new data and it is learning and it is changing its performance, still how do you ensure that it is still performing as intended and it's still safe to use in the field, right? So then what I did is I looked at in FDA that how many Gen AI-based products are approved. So that is 0 today. So I don't see even a single Gen AI-based product approved. That means, what does that say is that we still have some time and at least few years to reach where Gen AI can impact patient outcomes where it is critical. For example, at Baxter, we work on reducing medication errors in ICU settings. So there's a lot of parameters that has to be monitored within ICU environment, including the drug which is being infused to the patient and patient vitals that is being coming out of the monitoring devices, and environmental variables, and intervene the surgical procedure or ICU staff to give an attention, right? And that requires AI model to process all of these parameters and provide intervention. And if Gen AI is going to be the solution to that kind of a problem, it has a long way to prove. How do you prove the efficiency and safety of that model in that kind of an environment?
Okay. So you spoke of artificial or augmented general intelligence, and no approval has yet come through for drugs or devices in that space. Now, from a consumer perspective, all of us have heard of the Boeing 737 MAX debacle. The Federal Aviation Authority delegated certification responsibility to the corporates. And of course, Boeing had an issue with the MCAS, and I'm going into details here, maneuvering controls augmentation system, which led to a few crashes. FDA has come up with a new software pre-certification pilot in September of 2022, where they're talking about moving away from a product-based approval to a firm-based approval. They're working with the Fitbits and the Apples and the J&Js of the world in figuring out, okay, what is it that I can do when I consider AI or software in general as a medical device? On one hand, is the FDA delegating some amount of approval to the companies, so the corporates involved? What does that do to the care quality, which we are already seeing is the leading cause of death? When it comes to medical errors, a follow-up on that, Sridhar, if you may.
See, even for FDA or any other regulatory authorities around the world, even they are trying to figure out how do they still put a boundary and control around releasing such AI-based models into the market. So what they have released in 2022 that you mentioned, I think FDA also released their initial guidance of they call it total product development life cycle approach, where you ensure, put a risk-based control around medical device across the medical device product development life cycle. And they're working with, they have to delegate because they are not expert of the entire AI, ever-evolving dynamic technology, right? So their only way is to partner with those experts, again, which is again the industry corporate experts or the standards makers. Like they have partnered with Army, and Army has released a new guidance for applying risk management, which is in the medical device industry, we say ISO 14971, which is our golden risk management support. So they have released a guidance for how to apply 14971 for AI-based device products, right? To say, I think regulatories around the world are still figuring it out. And the only problem is that each regulatory in each country are having its own way of solving this problem, which is going to still has to be managed.
Got it. Moving on to Shanti. Shanti, first, thank
Hello.
you for being on the panel. Talk to us about your success in deploying AI within your enterprise, and what kind of challenges do you think we face when it comes to data privacy, data security, and all of those good things?
Thank you, Bala. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you, NASSCOM, for giving me this opportunity to be a panel member, and thank you, audience, for being you. I represent Danaher here. We are a medical diagnostics and life sciences innovator. We take the onus of improving human lives very seriously. So some of our early successes on AI includes a product called as Triage Go. It is a clinical decision support tool that can be embedded into EHRs or EMRs and can be used in the emergency department of hospitals. This clinical decision support tool interfacing with the EMRs can actually actually aid the first responder in a emergency department to take the correct critical decisions regarding patient care. This is one of our success stories. The next success story is about how we use our data that's coming from our analyzers and from a lot of other devices for improving the productivity of the large diagnostic centers around the world, as well as improving the performance and reliability of our own analyzers. If I talk about it, our larger opcos like Radiometer, Beckman Coulter, Cepheid, they all are into it. Another thing that we have done is with Leica Biosystems, which is into advancing cancer diagnostics. So we use digital pathology, which is empowered by AI to make the right decisions when it comes to cancer diagnostics. So going along from the success stories to whatever we have what are the ethical considerations and challenges that we have faced? Yes, you touched upon one of those, which is data security and integrity, data privacy as well. We have to ensure that patient data protection is paramount to us. If we lose the patient's trust in the data and the data management capabilities that we as a health nation have, then it will be very difficult to regain it back. The next challenge is about the bias and the inequality. The biases can be of several types. It can be biases that are introduced by the algorithm, by the developers themselves who develop these models, or it can also be the confirmation bias. There are AI models that suggest that a certain population is more anemic than the rest. How did they come to that conclusion? It is because of the data that has been fed into it. Is that really accurate? At a time when the bureaucrats are questioning the veracity of the data and the interpretations we make out of these, even in a human-led system, how much can we trust these AI-based systems to come up with insights like these? Of course, one of the most interesting challenges that we always face is the regulatory challenge. Yes, we have a lot of guidelines. We have a lot of procedures that support us from ISO and IEC. But have they evolved with time to support the AI technologies that are evolving on a second-by-second basis? Have they kept pace with the advances that we have made? I do not know. And if there is a plea that I can put out, that is the plea. Have the regulation or the regulatory framework mature at the level that the AI is maturing. Thank you, Bala.
Absolutely. I mean, all of us who have seen ChatGPT, there are companies who have spent probably 10 years in getting 100 million users. ChatGPT went there in a few weeks. That's the pace change that we're talking about. So, gentlemen and lady, probably 15 seconds each. I want you to describe the future of AI within your enterprise and within your clients. What are the top changes that you see happening?
Yeah, so I think quick response would be that the industry will take its time. It will be slow, but I think definitely first as an efficiency tool. Definitely it's an efficiency tool, no-brainer, whether we discussed content authoring, data as a service, across GenAI and the whole customer engagement piece, call centers. So we will see efficiency everywhere. It will take some time for guidelines and everybody to make sure that the right frameworks and everything to come back to make sure it comes back out.
Sridhar?
At Baxter, again, I think we are all excited as any other industry to adopt AI as early as possible. There are a lot of initiatives. I think where we are today is building an infrastructure and a governance body and a legal system around it to evaluate what Gen AI models can be really brought in. I think the first step, like any other industry, is to on the efficiency side and increase the productivity. And then the second step is that which clinical use case it can apply to.
Okay. Shanti?
We are looking more at predictive analytics for population health management, mostly in the areas of anemia, diabetes, and other chronic diseases. Maybe that's something that I would personally prefer to pursue.
Okay. I tried very hard, ladies and gentlemen, to be a devil's advocate here and to push the panelists, providing a more pessimistic and alarmist view of AI. But I think the panel has collectively come to more of a pragmatic to an optimistic view around how AI will change the face of healthcare.
I would like to say that maybe in healthcare, generative AI is currently overhyped. It does take some time in healthcare to really settle down.
And we are never the early adopters of anything new in any case. So we will balance the probably sometimes irrational exuberance around Gen AI artificial general intelligence with the healthcare needs of today and the future, to ensure that we heal without harm, we uplift without dividing people, which is all about equity, and we empower without exploitation, which is all about a patient-centric approach to healthcare. Once again, thank you, panel, for providing your expert views, and thank you all for patiently listening. Appreciate it. Thank you, NASSCOM.
Thank you all.